Hey, welcome to the Family Empowerment Podcast, powered by Clover. I'm Dr. Arnel Cosey, and I am thrilled to have you join me as I explore the incredible impact Clover has on our community. We've been a symbol of hope and resilience in New Orleans and provide nationally accredited programs for everyone, from infants to seniors, ensuring that every individual has the support they need to thrive. In this podcast series, we'll dive into the programs, studies, and life-changing stories that make Clover a cornerstone of our city. We'll hear from team members, partners, and participants who are driving this impactful work. So stay tuned as we showcase the daily impact Clover brings to the city of New Orleans. Good morning, everyone. This is Arnel Cosey, Strategy and Impact Officer for Clover in New Orleans. And this morning, I have my good friend and colleague here to join me, Claire Jecklin from the New Orleans Career Center. Welcome, Claire.
Thanks. It's great to be here. Good morning.
Good morning. Really happy to have you here today. Before we get started talking about workforce development and all of those good things, why don't you tell us a little bit about the New Orleans Career Center and the great work that you all are doing?
Sure. I'd love to. So the New Orleans Career Center provides technical training for both high school youth and adults in our community, specifically focusing on 18 to 24-year-olds and also unemployed and underemployed adults in our community. Yeah. And so we're a workforce development strategy to get New Orleanians into the good paying jobs in our local economy through access to the training that they want.
Yeah, doing incredible work. We are fortunate and really honored to be one of your partners, but beyond Clover, you're doing some incredible work, so thank you for that. Let's jump in and talk about a recent project that you and I partnered with some other great community access partners. It's the Where the Workers research, the study. Tell us a little bit about it and what you think is the importance of that study.
Sure. So I'm really excited that we got to partner on this. What's interesting is I had heard about the Where Are the Workers study out of Ohio and was really jealous of the community data and the information that came out of that study. They were presenting nationally on what they found out. Yeah. The Where Are the Workers study was brought here, of course, by Clover, and we're lucky to be one of many community organizations that partnered. So the Where Are the Workers study essentially brings talent information about New Orleanians and their perspectives on work, on work opportunities, the dreams and current wages, where they want to move, what barriers they might face, and what training they've already had to really provide a picture of, not just where are the workers, but how do they feel?
That's it, right.
And what stories can we get from our community members, both, high schoolers all the way up through adulthood, across age, gender, race, to consider, how community organizations like ours work together to make sure that they have the right tools and supports to get to work. Yeah.
We learned some really important findings, I think, from that study, and we are grateful to Bashara Addison, who led that study, that work in the Ohio area, and Dr. Stephanie Hoops from the National Alice Project, who supported us even since then. So what impact do you think the findings that we've learned from the report are going to have on the community? And in your opinion, how does this particular study different from other similar ones maybe?
Yeah. I don't know of any other studies like this that we have both in New Orleans and also just nationally.
Yes, go New Orleans.
Yes. So many studies focus on a particular program and what works and doesn't work about it, or very specific things like wage data. But the narrative and the actual community voices are what make this most powerful. So I really love the question about, where do you hope to go and what barriers might you feel you experience? And some of the questions provide, quantitative data, which is great, but the qualitative data, the individual stories is rich. And so when I just think about the youth, I was really surprised to find out that young people, even with access to technical training, don't know whether or not they're going to get a job and whether that's real.
Yes.
And so just within our organization, it was a real surprise to see those stories come out. And how do we then move differently to make sure that young people hear the stories about getting to work, feel more confident, and ask better questions about how we get to, the fears that are there. I think in a broader sense for our community, the community partners at the table provide both wraparound services, childcare, and workforce training, in addition to really partnering with families like Clover and United Way to think about how do we help people build and move, what is economic mobility, what is possible. And I think understanding and hearing from people where they want to go helps us think about what we do. We have a lot of assumptions that I think were validated around transportation, childcare, worker, rights and hours. But then there's the other stuff around I tried this and it didn't work, and what I actually need next is this. So it might expand our services, and it also told us what kind of jobs they want.
It did. It did. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So we know that a lot of people want to move into healthcare, which is validating, right? Because Clover and the Career Center.
Go Clover and the Career Center.
Partner in getting people directly to work. Shout out to LCMC Health
whoop, whoop.
For hiring folks. And it means that we really need to expand our train for hire programs and that they have to link to the jobs. I think the other thing we saw is that there's a set of training that people don't necessarily have access to right now. So how do we look around? For example, I know CDL came up.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And Job One offers a CDL program, but how many people know and how
so
many
does Clover.
seats are there? Yes, and so does Clover.
Yes.
And still not enough. So how do we expand those opportunities to those jobs that we know pay really well, but you have to have more than a high school diploma and less than a college degree? Is required. So that means there has to be some form of continuing education.
Yes.
And it's not a degree path. And so 55% of our jobs are those mid-skill jobs. So people are wanting access to those jobs. How do we then work together to either grow those programs or find people who are doing them and help them grow them?
Yeah, I love you doing that. You just highlighted, and where the workers' research also highlights, I think, for all of us, the importance and the value of collaboration. I think what really surfaced or bubbled up in all of it is that we will not be able to find solutions or adequately address the issues that our workforce are experiencing without coming together. That what we've seen in this field is the isolation of providing services, and what seems to really have bubbled up is there needs to be a coordination and a collaboration for the wraparound supports, for the training, and we are probably right at a critical point where it is important for us to listen to the workers because of the challenges that we're facing that employers are telling us they have in identifying or finding recruiting workforce for whatever their fields are. I'm looking forward to what will happen as a result of this survey and us coming together when we reschedule the session that we had to cancel because of the bad weather in April. Stay tuned for more information on that for the fall. So you talked a little bit about it, but let's move on and talk about how does this study prove that there should be support for more training programs that are offered by Clover through workforce development, but also through some of our partners, such as yourself and the others that we work with.
Well, workforce requires collaboration, right? So we can say it requires wraparound services, but to be specific for people who are thinking about this, in a new way or from a perspective of organizing for the community, we're talking about both the transportation system, we're talking about childcare, we're talking about food insecurity, we're talking about diapers, we're talking about housing. And so not any one entity can do all of these things, as you know.
Yes.
And then we also know for Clover, in the workforce, the question is really, is any one entity able to serve everyone, even that Clover has, that would like to take advantage?
Correct.
And the answer is right now that we don't have enough training seats
Yes.
across our city.
That's right.
But we could. And I don't think it's, I don't think anyone in our community is saying we want to limit workforce opportunities. I think it's more bringing employers to the table to
Yes.
say, this is a ready workforce. We want to scale up this workforce. We can show you some examples of success and employers who can tell you that
Yes.
story. And then we can replicate this model. And more traditional workforce or technical training might be a 2-year degree. But in this case, in order to enroll in a training program, we have to think about, where in the space of someone who's already working hard to survive and or support their family,
Yes.
where are they going to get those supports? And they can't spend time going all around town asking people for things. They're the central organization of working with community supports and also those who have emergency aid and those entities who are providing specialized supports allow someone to access the training that we offer. And so industry is saying, 55% of the jobs are mid-skill and the workforce is retiring. We've heard about the silver tsunami. It's here. And so people are leaving these jobs, but there's not anyone to take them. It's a golden opportunity to say, and this study proves there's a group of people who want those jobs.
It absolutely did. And I also recall from the study, if you can speak to that a little bit, there were several, I'm staying away from the word challenges, but points that the individuals who responded to the survey responded to in terms of the process itself and what they were experiencing. Was also something highlighted that bubbled up in the report. Can you speak to that just a little bit?
Sure. I think there are a variety of challenges that bubbled up, right? So many different stories, and I'm sure you can add in a few if I don't get to them. But one of the ones is how do people make the transition to employment, and particularly how do they suddenly leave what might be a set of benefits or a set of logistics to survive in one way and connect to work with an employer who has not thought about or planned for what a transition looks like.
Correct.
The other thing is, what does onboarding look like to help someone keep a job? And then another thing that really stood out to me is the feeling that someone might get into a job, but they don't actually get to the level that they aimed to.
Yes.
There's not upward mobility or access to do that. I think that, we've heard about the benefits cliff, where someone has to make the shift from perhaps, the children's health insurance to their employer health insurance, and that gap, which also, it's financial planning. The transportation piece just continues to haunt me.
And the childcare piece.
Yes.
Yeah.
Childcare is huge. If you work at night. And even though we've expanded seats in New Orleans, which is awesome.
Yeah, we talked about that in another episode with Keith.
It's so great.
Yeah, it's huge.
And it's still not enough.
Yes.
And in what way are employers acknowledging childcare as an important part of mobilizing the workforce? And or in what way might employers start to think differently about their role in order to get workers?
All of it is huge. And again, I will encourage our audience to learn more and read up on it and even invite them to attend when we convene, hopefully in October. But moving on a little bit, let's talk a little bit about giving everything that you've just mentioned and done a great job on in terms of folks wanting to enter the workforce, the challenges that they're facing, And really behind the study was a group of organizations who in some shape, form, or fashion are involved either through training, providing wraparound supports, or having access to participants. We came together as a collaborative to say all of this is of interest to us. Talk a little bit about why you think it's important for people to support that work. Right?
Yeah.
Why would it be important to support the work beyond the where the workers report? Because we're that is the goal. It wasn't to just do the report. We're hoping that we take these findings and through our conversations at the convening identify a plan for addressing all of this in this community. Why would it be important for an individual or an organization to come in and say, I want to support what's happening at Clover, what's happening at New Orleans Career Center, what's happening in our community?
So I think it depends on their power levers
Yeah.
as an individual. So some people, let's be real, might be able to bring the financial resources. Workforce training does cost money. It's actually quite affordable compared to having people unemployed in our community. It's actually a real benefit.
Yes.
So those who recognize that our fates are tied together in our community and want to do something about that,
Amen, sister.
let's bring the resources.
Yes.
As an employer, I think we want to make sure that as employers are convening at their different tables, that they're aware that when they're talking about a talent shortage, they have this research to say like, well, these might be creative solutions. These people are partners.
Yes.
In terms of supporting the work, I also want to see employers show up to say, hey, Clover and the Career Center, we want to make a Train for Hire program. We want to help you expand your CDL program. We want to actually build an additional, career pathway. We have access.
Yeah, that's great. And so what I'm hoping the audience hears is there are multiple ways that they can support workforce development, and aside from that, even support individuals and families in this community. So in Clover, when we talk about educating children, building, strengthening families and building community, there are multiple ways for them to come in and support the work that we do, not only as an individual organization, but also with very important partners such as yourself. Beyond that, when you think of the really good work that we've done together, not just on the Where the Workers Report, maybe you can talk a little bit for us about some of the opportunities, not the opportunities, but some of the work that Clover and New Orleans Career Center has done together, the training that we provided, and some of the success stories with these participants, because I think that would be very important for the audience to hear.
Yeah, it has been such a pleasure to partner. It is often very siloed work, and I do hope that one of the things that comes out of the report and from all of us is that we find a way to share information about what is happening.
Yes.
For the story of Clover and the Career Center together, we have brought patient care check training to over 100 people.
Yes.
Who are mostly Head Start parents, almost all female, head of household,
Correct.
multiple children,
Correct.
Who want access to a new career and they've wanted to work in healthcare.
Yes.
And so we set our sights on, what's an employer that's going to agree to hire people, who's going to collaborate on the curriculum and identify a job that really needs a set of workers that we can train into those jobs. And so we worked with LCMC Health and their talent development team, and your team and our team got together with their team, and we talked about what are the skills, what are the credentials, what is the hands-on training, what are the interview skills, what are the sort of power skills to succeed in the workplace. And we built a training program. And you recruited from the Clover community, which is vast. So we had folks not just from the housing development communities that Clover serves, but also the Head Start parents, which is really cool.
That's so awesome.
So that's a two-generation approach,
That's
right?
Yes.
And that means that both young people and their parent are benefiting.
Yeah.
And I also think about Clover as a 3-gen approach because of also those who have older family members who are in elder care and that amazing program. And so bringing together someone who wants access to a new job. We also looked at jobs that pay a living wage or above. Our minimum wage is the federal minimum wage, which is what, like $7.50.
Sad.
And so $16 an hour for a starting job
Benefits.
With a 10-week to 14-week training.
Yeah.
That is part-time and around the schedule and of people who participate is really accessible.
Yeah.
And so we train cohorts of 20 to 30 at a time, and that group works together through the training, and then they graduate and move on to jobs with LCMC Health that are full-time with benefits.
And those graduations are something to witness when you see the joy in the faces of the graduates and the families who are there to understand how we are changing generations, right? Because we know that of those over 100 students who started with the two of us through the patient care technician, many of them have gone on. It's been a career pathway, if you will, and many of them have gone on to further their education and advance themselves professionally. And so when we talk about the comprehensive impact of the Where the Workers report, the impact that not just the report will have on this community moving forward, but also that we continue in partnerships that do important work, such as what the two of our organizations do, then we also understand why it is important to support or fund these opportunities. You know, future research studies, as we said, the desire to continue the workforce development training programs, and even to further the research into what we've learned from the Where the Workers report and how it will impact this community, I think is going to be very important. Well, this has been wonderful. As always, I enjoy our conversations. Thank you for coming out and being a part of the Family Empowerment Podcast, powered by Clover. And for people who would like to know more about the New Orleans Career Center, where can they find you on social media?
So first of all, we have a website, nolacc.org, where you can sign up interest for programs just regardless of age group. And then we also have information about our programs. But we're on all the social media platforms. So we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, and we're even on X.
Formerly known as Twitter. Well, thanks for that. But and for anyone who's looking for more information on Clover, you can find us. Our handle is at Clover New Orleans, and we are on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. Thank you all for tuning in once again. We look forward to having you join us for the next episode of the Family Empowerment Podcast, powered by Clover. Thanks for joining me. I hope you've been inspired by all the incredible stories and impactful work that Clover's doing in this community. But don't let the conversation end here. Visit clovernola.org to discover more about our programs and how you can get involved. Follow us on social media at Clover New Orleans for uplifting updates and the heartwarming stories of empowerment. Together, we're going to make a difference. Stay tuned for more episodes as we continue to celebrate and strengthen our vibrant New Orleans community. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.